Hi guys, before we continue, I would like you guys to know something. When I started this story, it had been in my mind for a long time. So I want to know, what would you guys do if you woke up in a whole new body with all new personalities and wealth and power and money that is not yours? And you have to choose, will you go back or would you choose to stay? Tell me in the comments. Thank you.
The world didn't end with a whimper. It ended with the screech of twisting steel and the roar of 1,000 terrified voices. Tiwa Lawal felt the stage beneath her feet shudder, a violent, rhythmic groan that vibrated through her marrow. In Lagos, the air was thick with the scent of sea salt, diesel, and blooming hibiscus, a sensory overload that usually anchored her to the earth. But as the massive lighting rig tore free from the rafters during the finale of the cultural showcase, all she smelled was ozone and the metallic tang of fear. She looked up, her long, thick curls caught in a sudden gust of artificial wind, her warm brown skin glowing under the dying spotlights. There was no time to scream, no time to pray. The darkness that claimed her was heavy and absolute, a crushing weight that tasted like copper and old memories, dragging her down into a fathomless sea where her identity felt like a garment being slowly unzipped. I've often wondered if that's what death always is. Not an end, but a long, slow unlayering of everything you thought you were. Then came the silence. It wasn't the silence of death, which she'd always imagined as a cold, hollow void, but the pressurized, clinical quiet of a room that cost more than her Lagos apartment was worth in a lifetime. Tiwa's eyes flew open, but the light that greeted them was different, sharper, colder, filtered through expensive glass. The ceiling was a minimalist expanse of recessed lighting and Venetian plaster. Her lungs burned, not with the smoke of a collapsing stage, but with the crisp filtered air of a high-end HVAC system that seemed to strip the moisture from her throat. She tried to sit up, but her movements were sluggish, as if her limbs were being operated by a novice puppeteer. Her hands, when they finally came into view, were not her own. They were porcelain white, the skin so thin and pale she could see the delicate blue tracery of veins beneath. Her fingers were long and manicured to sharp clinical perfection, lacking the calluses she'd earned from years of hard work. Panic seized her throat. She scrambled out of bed, silk sheets unfamiliar against skin that felt wrong. Too smooth, too cold. The floor beneath her bare feet was heated marble, another wrongness in a cascade of impossibilities. Across the room, a floor-to-ceiling mirror reflected a stranger. Long, straight black hair that fell like water, sharp cheekbones, small nose, skin like porcelain instead of warm brown earth. Not her face, not her body, not her. Her hands flew to her face, fingers trembling as they traced features that weren't hers. The reflection mimicked her movements perfectly, a cruel confirmation of the impossible. Before the scream building in her throat could escape, a voice filled her mind. Calm, clinical, absolute, contract complete. Host Yoon Ara has forfeited this life. You now carry her unfinished consequence. Tiwa's breath caught. What? No, this isn't. The voice continued as if she hadn't spoken. You have inherited 60 billion won, 40% shares in Hotel Luxor, and one binding engagement contract to Park Sung-woo, heir to Daehan Group. Time remaining to fulfill obligations. 72 hours. Before she could process the impossible words, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. The screen lit up with a name she didn't recognize but somehow knew. Park Sung-woo. Her hands moved on autopilot, muscle memory that wasn't hers. You have until noon to apologize publicly to Soare. The voice on the other end was ice wrapped in entitlement. Post it on your social media, on your knees if necessary, or the wedding is off, and your family's debt becomes due immediately. Memories flooded in like a dam breaking. Yoon Ara, 28. Engaged to a man who paraded his mistress in public and demanded humiliation as proof of love. A woman who'd sacrificed everything to save her family from bankruptcy. A woman who'd given up and left this body for Tiwa to inherit. Did you hear me? Sung-woo's voice sharpened. Yoon Ara. Something hot and defiant unfurled in Tiwa's chest. She died once already. She wasn't about to live someone else's nightmare. No. Silence crackled through the line. What did you just say? I said no. Find someone else to humiliate. I'm done. She ended the call and threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall with a satisfying crack. Her reflection stared back from the mirror. Korean features, yes, but her eyes, still deep brown, still holding fire. Still Tiwa underneath. If she was going to be reborn, she decided she was going to be reborn free. The television flickered to life. A news anchor's voice filled the room. In breaking business news, Lee Jun-hyun, CEO of Hanul Hotel Group, has acquired controlling shares in Hotel Lux Seoul, making him majority stakeholder. Industry insiders call it a hostile but brilliant takeover. The camera cut to a man stepping out of a black sedan. Tiwa's breath stopped. He was devastating. Tall, broad-shouldered, moving with controlled power that made the air seem to bend. Sharp jawline. Dark eyes that held intelligence and something dangerous. He didn't smile for cameras. Didn't need to. Lee Jun-hyun. The name whispered through her inherited memories. And something about the way he moved sent heat curling low in her belly. It was unsettling, this physical recognition of a stranger. But it was also real. She needed to know more. 3 days later, Tiwa stood in front of her walk-in closet, fingers trailing over the organized perfection of Yoon Ara's wardrobe. Everything was muted. Beige, cream, soft pastels that screamed submission. Designed to disappear. Designed to be decorative and silent. Designed to be exactly what Park Sung-woo wanted. A beautiful doll with no voice, no fire, no substance. She'd spent those 3 days methodically dismantling every expectation Ara had accepted. The first day, she discovered the debt Sung-woo held was partially fabricated. Inflated numbers. Forged documents. The second day, she'd learned that her 40% share in Hotel Lux was more powerful than Ara had ever realized. The third day, she'd researched Lee Jun-hyun until her eyes burned. He'd built his empire despite coming from wealth. Had a reputation for being ruthless but fair. And he'd never, in 10 years of being Seoul's most eligible bachelor, been photographed with the same woman twice. Not because he was a playboy, but because he was impossibly private. She'd found one interview from 5 years ago where he'd been asked about marriage. His answer had been simple. I'm waiting for someone who makes me forget I ever wanted to be alone. Tiwa had read that line 7 times. It felt like a secret she'd stumbled upon. Something not meant for public consumption. Now, standing in front of the closet, she pushed past the pastels and found what she was looking for. An ivory silk gown with long sleeves and an open back that dipped dangerously low, the cut ending just above the curve of her lower back. Elegant but unmistakably sensual. The kind of dress that whispered rather than shouted but left absolutely no question about the woman wearing it. She paired it with simple diamond studs. Ara's, but they felt like hers now, and nude heels that added 3 inches to her height. When she looked in the mirror, the woman staring back was neither fully Tiwa nor fully Ara. She was something fiercer, something that refused to be tamed. Tonight was the Hotel Lux shareholders' gala, and Lee Jun-hyun would be there. Her hands trembled slightly as she applied dark lipstick. Not from fear, from anticipation. She'd spent the last 72 hours learning everything she could about her new life. The shares she owned. The power she hadn't realized Ara had simply refused to use. The engagement contract that could be broken with the right legal maneuvering. And she'd learned about Lee Jun-hyun. 32. Self-made despite coming from wealth. A man who'd turned down his father's chaebol empire to build his own hotel dynasty. Ruthless in business. Private in life. No scandals. No public relationships. A man, she suspected, who knew exactly what he wanted and took it without apology. The gala was held in the grand ballroom of Hotel Lux's flagship location. All crystal and gold and old money elegance that spoke of power consolidated over generations. Tiwa arrived alone, and she felt the whispers follow her like silk dragging across marble. Every step she took echoed in the sudden silences that bloomed around her. Is that Yoon Ara? She looks completely different. I heard she's still engaged to Park Sung-woo. This should be interesting. Did you see what she posted? She refused to apologize to his mistress publicly. Brave or stupid? With Park Sung-woo, probably both. Tiwa held her head high, her hair styled in soft waves that moved when she walked, catching the chandelier light. Her shoulders were bare except for the delicate straps of her gown, and the open back was a statement all its own. She'd learned in her old life that confidence was performative until it became real. She performed now, knowing that somewhere in this room of Seoul's elite, her reality was watching. She accepted a glass of champagne from a server, her eyes scanning the crowd with the same intensity they'd once used to read hostile audiences in Lagos. Business executives, old money families, politicians' wives dripping in jewelry that cost more than most people's homes. And then, near the bar, surrounded by men in expensive suits who were clearly trying to impress him despite the barely concealed disinterest in his posture. Lee Jun-hyun. He stood like a man who'd forgotten how to doubt himself. Tall, broader than she'd realized from television footage, wearing a black suit tailored so perfectly it looked like it had been painted onto him. His dark hair was styled back, emphasizing the sharp angles of his face, and even from across the room, she could see the intelligence in his eyes, the careful assessment he gave everyone around him, the way he held himself apart even while engaging in conversation. And then he looked up, directly at her. The world narrowed to that single point of connection. Time didn't slow, it stopped. The ambient noise of the gala faded into white noise. Her champagne glass felt impossibly heavy in her hand. She couldn't have looked away if the building was burning down around them. His gaze traveled over her face with the thoroughness of a man memorizing something precious. She watched his lips part slightly, watched his entire body still in recognition of something he couldn't possibly understand but felt all the same. Heat, recognition, inevitability. The distance between them felt charged, electric, impossible to ignore. And then he moved, not rushed, not eager, but deliberate, unhurried, crossing the ballroom with the absolute confidence of a man who knew every eye was on him but only cared about one set of eyes looking back. People stepped aside without being asked. Conversations halted mid-sentence. The crowd parted like water. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Subtle, expensive, woodsy with a hint of something darker that made her want to lean in and breathe deeper. Close enough that she had to tilt her head back slightly to maintain eye contact. Close enough that every nerve in her body sang with awareness. "You look different tonight." His voice was exactly as deep as she'd imagined, smooth and dark like whiskey, with an edge that made her skin prickle with something that wasn't quite fear but felt just as dangerous. Tiwa met his gaze without flinching, even though every instinct screamed at her to look away from the intensity burning in those dark eyes. "Maybe I finally feel different." His eyes traveled over her face, studying her with a focus that should have been uncomfortable but instead felt like being truly seen for the first time in this new body. Not just looked at, seen. Your posture changed, the way you hold your shoulders, the cadence of your voice when you speak. He paused, and something flickered in his expression. Curiosity mixed with something hungrier. The way you hold eye contact without apology. You're not afraid. Should I be? Most people are. His head tilted slightly. Around me, especially at events like this where every word is a negotiation and every smile is strategic. But you're not performing. You're just here, present, real. She felt her pulse quicken. How did he see so much in under a minute? And that bothers you? No, the single word was definitive. It fascinates me. The air between them thickened with something neither of them could name. Tiwa was acutely aware of how close he stood, of the way his presence seemed to create a pocket of privacy even in a crowded ballroom, of the heat radiating from his body despite the carefully maintained distance. He reached for a glass of champagne from a passing server and offered it to her. Their fingers brushed during the exchange. His warm and slightly rough, hers trembling just enough that she hoped he didn't notice. The contact was brief, innocent by any objective standard. Felt like lightning coursing through her veins. Neither of them acknowledged it directly, but Tiwa saw the subtle tension in his jaw, the way his gaze dropped for just a fraction of a second to where their hands had touched. The way his breathing changed, became slightly deeper. The way he seemed to lean infinitesimally closer before catching himself. I acquired controlling shares in this hotel, Junhyun said quietly. His voice pitched low enough that only she could hear beneath the ambient noise of the gala. Which makes us business partners now, Miss Yoon. Equal stakeholders in something that could be quite valuable. The double meaning wasn't lost on her. Business partners, or something more. Then we should probably discuss terms, Tiwa replied, matching his tone. I tend to be very particular about my partnerships. His mouth curved into something that was almost a smile but felt infinitely more dangerous. I'd like that. Very much. He paused, and his eyes, God, his eyes, seemed to look straight through every defense she'd ever built. Though I suspect this conversation will be far more interesting than anything in a boardroom. Why is that? Because you're not playing the game everyone else is playing. He set his whiskey down on a nearby table, his full attention now fixed solely on her. Everyone in this room is performing their carefully constructed role. The dutiful daughter, the ambitious executive, the trophy wife. But you, his voice dropped even lower. You're something else entirely. And what do you think I am? Someone who walked through fire and came out made of something stronger. The words were spoken with such quiet certainty that Tiwa felt them like a physical touch. Someone who decided to stop burning for other people and started burning for themselves. Her breath caught. How could he see so clearly? How could this stranger read her better than people who'd known her for years? That's quite an assessment based on 30 seconds of conversation. I'm very good at reading people. His gaze held hers. It's how I've survived in this world. And you, Miss Yoon, are the most interesting thing I've read in a very long time. Before she could respond, a hand clamped around her wrist. Hard. Possessive. Park Sung-woo appeared at her side, his face flushed with anger barely contained beneath a social smile. There you are, darling. I've been looking everywhere for you. Tiwa's eyes narrowed. Let go of me. We need to talk. Privately. Junhyun's entire demeanor changed. The subtle warmth vanished, replaced by something cold and absolutely lethal. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. Let go of her. Sung-woo laughed, but it sounded brittle. This doesn't concern you, Lee. Ara is my fiancé. She asked you to let go. Junhyun's voice dropped lower, each word precise. I don't like repeating myself. The tension thickened. Other guests were starting to notice, starting to stare. Tiwa yanked her wrist free herself, stepping deliberately closer to Junhyun. Not hiding behind him, standing beside him. I'm not your anything, Sung-woo. Not anymore. Sung-woo's face darkened. You think you can just walk away? Your family's debt will be handled. Tiwa cut him off. But not by me becoming your trained pet. Gasps rippled through the nearby crowd. Junhyun's hand moved, not touching her but hovering near the small of her back. Protective. A silent statement of whose side he was on. Sung-woo's eyes darted between them, something ugly twisting his features. You'll regret this, Ara. Both of you. He turned and stalked away, leaving a wake of shocked whispers. Tiwa released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Junhyun's voice was quiet beside her. You just declared war. She looked up at him, pulse still racing. Then stand somewhere safe. He stepped closer instead. Close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. Close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. I don't retreat, he said softly. The air between them felt thick, charged with something that had nothing to do with business deals or social politics. His gaze dropped to her mouth for a heartbeat before returning to her eyes. Neither do I, Tiwa whispered. They stood like that for a moment too long to be casual. And then Junhyun stepped back, his expression controlled but his eyes still burning with that same intensity. I'll have my legal team contact you tomorrow, he said, about the shares and other matters. Other matters? His smile was slight but devastating. I think you know what I mean, Miss Yoon. He walked away, leaving Tiwa standing alone in the middle of the ballroom with her heart pounding and her skin still tingling from proximity alone. This was dangerous. This was exactly what she wanted. The next morning, Tiwa woke to find her reflection shifting again. Subtle changes. Her hair, when she ran her fingers through it, had more texture than yesterday. The slightest wave where there should have been only straight silk. Her skin tone in the right light seemed warmer, less porcelain, more golden. She was changing, not just inhabiting this body, merging with it. The realization should have terrified her, but instead it felt right, like two rivers converging into something stronger. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Miss Yoon, this is Kang Min-jae. I'm a prosecutor with the Seoul District Office, and I have some questions regarding Park Sung-woo's business practices. I'd like to meet with you privately. Tiwa's instincts prickled. How did you get this number? I have my ways. His voice was smooth, charming even through the phone. I promise I'm on your side. Shall we say coffee at 2 p.m.? There's a quiet place in Bukshan I think you'd like. Something in his tone made her hesitate. But if he had information about Sung-woo, she needed to hear it. Fine. Send me the address. The coffee shop was traditional, tucked in Bukshan Hanok village, hidden where tourists rarely ventured. Low wooden tables, paper screens filtering afternoon light. The smell of green tea and honey cakes. Kang Min-jae was already waiting, and Tiwa understood immediately why he'd chosen this place. Private, intimate, the kind of location where secrets could be shared without being overheard. He was beautiful in an almost unfair way. Sharp features, easy smile, eyes that held intelligence and something dangerous. Perception. Where Jun Hyun commanded rooms, Min-jae charmed them. He stood when she entered, bowing with the right amount of respect. Miss Yoon, thank you for meeting me. You said you had questions about Sung-woo. Tiwa settled across from him, guard firmly in place. I do. He poured tea with practiced grace. But first, I'm curious about you. You've changed dramatically this past week. The way you carry yourself, the way you speak, even the way you breathe seems different. Tiwa's blood went cold. She kept her expression neutral. People change when they stop accepting unacceptable situations. True. Min-jae's smile never wavered, but his eyes saw too much. But usually not overnight. Usually not so completely that it's as if they've become an entirely different person. He leaned forward slightly. It's almost as if you're not the same person at all, Miss Yoon. Her heartbeat thundered. He couldn't know. Unless, what exactly are you suggesting, Prosecutor Kang? I'm suggesting that Seoul hasn't seen someone like you before, and I find that fascinating. His gaze held hers, something knowing flickering in their depths. Some souls cross oceans for unfinished justice. I wonder which ocean you crossed, Miss Yoon. The air felt too thin. You're talking nonsense, she managed, but her voice betrayed her. Am I? He sat back, smile easy again. Forgive me. Sometimes I get philosophical when I should stick to facts. Let's talk about Park Sung-woo instead. Shall we? He's been using company funds to pay off debts incurred through illegal gambling. I have evidence, but I need someone close to him to testify. Tiwa's mind raced. I'm not close to him anymore. No, but you were. And you have access to information he thought he controlled through you. Min-jae pulled out a folder, sliding it across the table. He's dangerous, Miss Yoon, more than you realize. If you help me build this case, I can protect you. She opened the folder. Bank statements, transactions, patterns of fraud that made her stomach turn. Why are you really helping me? She asked. Min-jae's smile turned almost sad. Let's just say I have a personal interest in seeing justice served, and in keeping interesting people safe. Before she could respond, the door to the coffee shop opened. Lee Jun-hyun stood in the entrance. His gaze landed on them, on her sitting across from Min-jae, on the folder between them, on the intimate proximity of their table, and something dark flashed across his face. Jealousy. Quick, controlled, but unmistakable. He crossed to their table with measured steps. Prosecutor Kang, I didn't expect to see you here. Jun Hyun. Min-jae's tone was cordial but held an edge. Same to you. Jun-hyun's attention shifted to Tiwa. We had a meeting scheduled. You didn't show. She'd forgotten. Completely forgotten about the legal consultation his team had set up. I apologize. Something came up. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I can see that. The tension between the two men was palpable. Min-jae looked amused. Jun-hyun looked barely restrained. I was just leaving, Min-jae said smoothly, standing. He turned to Tiwa. Think about what I said. And call me if you need anything. Anything at all. He brushed past Jun-hyun, and Tiwa could have sworn she saw Jun-hyun's hand curl into a fist for just a second. Then they were alone. Jun-hyun slid into the seat Min-jae had vacated, his movements controlled but his energy crackling. What did he want? Information about Sung-woo. And what did you give him? Tiwa met his gaze steadily. Nothing yet. I don't know if I can trust him. You can't. Jun-hyun's voice was flat. Kang Min-jae is brilliant and charming and has his own agenda for everything he does, including being interested in you. Heat curled through her at the implication. Are you jealous, Mr. Lee? His eyes darkened. I don't get jealous. I get territorial. And yes, I'm aware of how that sounds. The honesty of it stole her breath. I'm not something to own, she said quietly. No, he leaned forward, close enough that she could see the subtle flecks of gold in his dark eyes. You're something to earn. And I intend to. Her heart hammered against her ribs. What makes you think I'm interested? His gaze dropped to her mouth. Lingered. The way you're looking at me right now. She was looking at him like she wanted to be devoured. This is dangerous, she whispered. I know. We barely know each other. I know that too. His hand moved across the table, fingers stopping just short of touching hers. But I've known from the moment I saw you at the gala that something about you was different. That you were different. And I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since. Tiwa's breath caught. Jun-hyun. Her phone shattered the moment. Sung-woo's name flashed on the screen. She answered. What do you want? You really shouldn't have embarrassed me, Ara. His voice was silk over steel. Come to the old office building on Hanamdong. The one your father used to own before I bought his debt. Alone. Or I release documents that will destroy what's left of your family's reputation. The line went dead. Jun-hyun's expression had gone glacial. What did he say? He wants to meet. Alone. Absolutely not. I don't think I have a choice. Jun-hyun's hand closed over hers, warm and solid. There's always a choice. And the choice here is that you're not going alone. He said. I don't care what he said. Jun-hyun's thumb stroked across her knuckles. A gentle gesture that contrasted with the steel in his voice. You're not facing him alone. The building was abandoned, its windows dark and broken, the air inside thick with dust and decay. Tiwa walked through the entrance with Jun-hyun behind her, his presence a solid reassurance despite the fear crawling up her spine. Sung-woo waited in what had once been an executive office. He wasn't alone. Two men in suits flanked him, bodyguards with the kind of stillness that suggested violence held in check. I told you to come alone, Sung-woo said, his eyes on Jun-hyun. And I decided not to listen, Tiwa replied. Sung-woo's smile was ugly. Always so defiant now. You used to be so much more compliant, Ara. What changed? Everything. I see. He pulled out a stack of papers. These are share transfer documents. Sign them and I'll forget about your little rebellion. Refuse, and everyone learns about your family's fraud. Tiwa's blood went cold. What fraud? The one your father committed to try to save his business before he died. The one you covered up. The one that will send your mother and sister to prison if it comes to light. It was a lie. She could feel it in her bones. These memories weren't Ara's. They were fabrications. But Sung-woo didn't know she wasn't really Ara. Didn't know she could call his bluff without fear. No, she said simply. His face darkened. You don't have a choice. That's where you're wrong. Tiwa stepped forward, and she felt Jun-hyun tense behind her, ready to intervene. I'm not Ara anymore. I'm not the woman who let you humiliate her, who let you control her. That version of me is gone. Then maybe she needs to be reminded of her place. Sung-woo nodded to his men. They moved forward. Jun-hyun was faster. He put himself between Tiwa and them, his entire posture changing into something dangerous and absolutely certain. Touch her and find out exactly how much money can't protect you. The office door burst open. Kang Min-jae strode in with 4 uniformed officers, legal documents in hand. Park Sung-woo, you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and attempted coercion. I suggest you come quietly. Sung-woo's face went white. Jun-hyun turned to Min-jae. I called you an hour ago, and I've been building this case for months, Min-jae replied. Good timing on your part. As the officers handcuffed Sung-woo, he looked at Tiwa with pure hatred. This isn't over. Yes, she said quietly. It is. They led him away. Tiwa's legs went weak. Jun-hyun caught her before she could stumble, his arms coming around her waist, solid and warm. I've got you. She turned in his arms, and suddenly they were face to face, inches apart, breath mingling. You called him, she whispered. I wasn't going to let anything happen to you. Her hands came up to rest against his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart through the expensive fabric of his shirt. You barely know me. I know enough. His hand cupped her jaw, thumb stroking across her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. I know you're brave and stubborn, and that you set my world on fire the moment you walked into that ballroom. Tiwa's breath hitched. Jun-hyun. I know this is fast, he continued, his voice rough. I know it doesn't make sense, but I haven't felt like this in my entire life, and I'm not letting it go without trying. Min-jae cleared his throat from the doorway. I'll give you 2 a moment. Miss Yoon, I'll need your statement later. He left and they were alone. Tiwa searched Jun-hyun's face. I need to tell you something. Tell me. I'm not who you think I am. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. I'm not really Yoon Ara. I don't know how to explain it, but I died in Lagos and woke up in her body, and everything is changing, and I don't know if I'm real or if this is real or… I know. She froze. What? Jun-hyun's expression was impossibly gentle. I knew from the first moment I touched you at the gala. You felt different, like electricity, like recognition. His forehead pressed against hers. I told myself I was imagining it, but I wasn't. You're not her. You're someone else entirely. Tears burned behind Tiwa's eyes. And you're okay with that? I'm more than okay with it, because I fell in love with you in 30 seconds at that gala, and it had nothing to do with Yoon Ara. His hands framed her face. It was all you. But I might not get to stay, she whispered. The voice said I have a choice, and if I stay permanently, everything about who I was before gets erased. Then we'll deal with that when it comes. Jun-hyun's voice was absolute. But right now you're here, and I'm here, and I need to know if you feel this too. Did she feel it? This consuming fire that made everything else fade to background noise? This ache in her chest that expanded every time he looked at her? Yes, she breathed. God, yes. The kiss was inevitable. His mouth found hers, and Tiwa felt the world tilt. The kiss was deep, slow, devastating in its thoroughness. His hands slid from her face to her waist, pulling her closer, and she melted into him, fingers tangling in his hair. Heat bloomed through her body, pooling low in her belly, and when his tongue swept against hers, she made a sound she didn't recognize. He kissed her like he was claiming her, like he was memorizing her, like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were molten. Come home with me, he said roughly. Jun-hyun. Not for that. Not yet. His thumb traced her swollen bottom lip. I just need you close. I need to know you're safe. She nodded beyond words. His penthouse overlooked the Han River, all glass and steel and modern luxury tempered with warmth. Tiwa stood at the window, watching the lights of Seoul reflect on the dark water, and felt Jun-hyun come up behind her. He didn't touch her, just stood close enough that she could feel his presence like a physical thing. Tell me about Lagos, he said quietly. So she did. She told him about the cultural showcase, about her work promoting African artists in international markets, about her family and her dreams and the speech she never got to finish about belonging. He listened without interrupting, and when she was done, he asked, "Do you regret it? Being here instead of there?" "I don't know," she admitted. "I miss who I was. But I also feel like I'm becoming something new. Something that's both Tiwa and Ara and neither and both." She turned to face him. "Does that make any sense?" "Perfect sense." He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was tender, intimate. "You're not losing yourself. You're expanding." The observation hit her right in the chest. "How are you so understanding about all of this?" "Because I believe in things that can't be explained." His hand lingered at her neck, fingers tracing the line of her jaw. "And because watching you navigate this world with such courage and grace is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Tiwa's breath caught. "You should know I'm falling for you too." Terrifyingly fast. His smile was slow and devastating. "Good. I'd hate to be alone in this." They stood like that, forehead to forehead, hands intertwined, breathing each other in. The sexual tension that had been building between them simmered just beneath the surface. But this moment was about more than desire. It was about connection, about being seen and choosing to stay anyway. "Stay tonight," Hyan whispered. "In the guest room if you want. I just need to know you're here." She nodded. "Okay." He showed her to a bedroom that was all comfort and understated elegance. And when he said good night at the door, he kissed her forehead with such tenderness that her heart ached. "Sleep well, Tiwa." Hearing her real name from his lips felt like benediction. But sleep didn't come easily. Tiwa lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling the changes in her body continue like a tide she couldn't stop. Her hair was definitely cullier now, the straight silk of Ara's genetics giving way to the thick, textured curls she'd been born with in Lagos. Her skin warmer, less porcelain and more golden brown. Her features subtly shifting, higher cheekbones, fuller lips, eyes that held both identities in their depths. She was becoming a physical manifestation of two identities merged, and it should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like coming home. Around midnight, restless and unable to quiet her mind, she heard the voice again. Not invasive this time, almost gentle, like a door opening rather than a cage closing. "Host stability achieved. Integration at 78%. You may return to your original life or complete the merger. Choose carefully. This decision is permanent." The words settled over her like snow, beautiful and cold and final. Panic fluttered in her chest. Not because she didn't know what she wanted, but because making it real meant accepting everything she'd left behind would cease to exist. Her family in Lagos, her work, the woman she'd been, all of it would become memory without substance, dreams without dreamer. She wrapped herself in a silk robe and wandered into the living room, needing space to think, needing air that didn't smell like possibility and loss intertwined. Hyan was there, standing at the same window she'd occupied earlier, bare-chested, wearing only loose sleep pants that hung low on his hips. The city lights painted gold and shadow across the defined muscles of his back, the broad span of his shoulders, the line of his spine disappearing beneath fabric. He looked like a sculpture come to life, all masculine beauty and controlled power and devastating vulnerability. Her mouth went dry. Her body responded before her mind caught up, heat pooling low in her belly, pulse quickening in a rhythm that had nothing to do with fear. He turned when he heard her footsteps, and the sight of him from the front was even more overwhelming. Defined chest, abs that suggested discipline and strength, arms that looked like they could hold the world or cradle something precious with equal capability. But it was his eyes that held her, dark, intense, searching her face with concern that bordered on desperation. "Can't sleep." His voice was rough with exhaustion and something else, something tender. The voice came back. She moved closer, drawn like a moth to flame. "It's giving me a choice. Stay here permanently and lose my old identity completely, or go back to Lagos." Go back to being Tiwa Lawal without any memory of this. Without any memory of you. His expression shuddered, jaw clenching with barely controlled emotion. What do you want to do? I don't know. Tears pricked her eyes, hot and immediate. If I stay, Tiwa Lawal ceases to exist. My family won't remember me, my friends, my work. Everything I built in Lagos becomes as if I never existed. Just gone. Erased from the world like I was never there at all. She looked up at him, and the tears spilled over. But if I go back, her voice broke. I lose this. I lose you. I lose the woman I'm becoming. I lose the first time in my life I felt truly seen. Hyun closed the distance between them in 3 long strides, and suddenly his hands were cupping her face, thumbs brushing away tears with a gentleness that completely contradicted his overwhelming physical presence. His eyes burned with an intensity that made her tremble. Then let me make this easier for you, he said, his voice rough and raw and absolutely honest. Choose yourself. Choose what makes you feel whole, what makes you feel alive, what makes you feel like the truest version of who you're meant to be. And if that means going back to Lagos, if that means returning to Tiwa Lawal and everything you built there, I will understand. His forehead pressed against hers, breath mingling, hearts beating close enough to synchronize. I will understand, and I will let you go, and I will spend the rest of my life grateful that I got to meet you at all. And if I stay? The question came out as barely more than a whisper. If you stay, he breathed against her lips, so close she could feel every word. I will spend every single day earning the gift of your presence. I will build something with you that's ours alone. Not my father's legacy, not Ara's obligations, not anyone else's expectations. Something entirely new. Something that belongs to us. His hands slid from her face to her waist, pulling her closer until there was no space left between them. I will choose you over power, over expectation, over everything I was raised to value. Because you, this version of you, this fierce woman who crossed worlds and decided to burn for herself, you're worth more than any empire. That's too much to promise, she whispered, even as her hands came up to rest against his bare chest, feeling the rapid thunder of his heartbeat beneath her palms. It's exactly what you deserve. His voice dropped even lower, intimate and certain. And it's exactly what I want to give you. Tiwa's hands moved of their own accord, sliding up from his chest to his shoulders, feeling the heat of his skin, the strength coiled beneath. I'm scared. So am I. His admission was raw, honest, completely vulnerable. But I'm more scared of living without ever knowing what this could be. More scared of letting you slip away without fighting for us. More scared of safety than I am of this terrifying, consuming thing between us. She kissed him then, rising on her toes, pouring everything she felt into the press of her mouth against his. He responded immediately, arms coming around her waist, lifting her slightly as he deepened the kiss. It was desperate and tender and full of everything words couldn't hold. When they broke apart, both trembling, she whispered, I'm staying. Are you sure? I'm sure. She pressed her hand over his heart. Because this feels more like home than anything I left behind. The relief that washed over his face was devastating. He kissed her again, softer this time, and then rested his forehead against hers. Whatever you need, he murmured. Whatever this costs you, we'll face it together. The voice didn't speak again, but Tiwa felt the shift happening inside her body, felt the final merger completing. Tiwa and Ara becoming something new, someone who carried the strength of both and the limitations of neither. The next morning, she woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. Hyun was in the kitchen, wearing low-slung sweatpants and nothing else, looking unfairly beautiful in the morning light. You stayed, he said, something vulnerable in his voice. I stayed. He poured her coffee, and they sat together at the counter, knees touching, existing in comfortable silence until Tiwa's phone buzzed. Minjae's name flashed on the screen. She answered on speaker. Prosecutor Kong. Miss Yoon. I thought you should know. Park Sung-woo is officially indicted. The evidence was overwhelming. You're free of him. A pause. But I also wanted to tell you something else. I've investigated cases like yours before. Impossible cases. People who change overnight. I don't claim to understand it, but I've learned to recognize it. Tiwa's blood went cold. What are you saying? I'm saying I know what you are, and I'm saying you're not alone in this. There are others. His voice gentled. I wish I could have been what Junhyun is for you, but some stories are already written, aren't they? Min Jae. Be happy, Tiwa. You've earned it. He hung up. Junhyun was watching her carefully. He knew. Apparently. She set down the phone. Are you sure you're ready for all of this? For a woman who literally exists between two identities. I'm sure. He pulled her close, tucking her into his chest. Because the woman I love is brave enough to exist in both worlds. And I want to be part of whatever world she chooses to build. 2 weeks later, Junhyun called a press conference that shocked Seoul's business world. Standing beside Tiwa, with cameras flashing, he announced his resignation from his father's board and his intention to launch an independent hospitality venture, with her as equal partner. I'm choosing to build something new, he said, his hand finding hers in front of everyone. With someone who reminds me why I fell in love with this industry in the first place. The questions came fast and furious. The speculation about their relationship. The shock at his decision to walk away from guaranteed power. Tiwa stood beside him, holding her head high, and answered every question with the confidence of a woman who'd crossed worlds to find herself. Later, in the privacy of his office, she turned to him. You gave up so much. I gave up control for choice. He cupped her face. That's not sacrifice. That's freedom. She kissed him, and it felt like coming home. Sometimes, when I think about Tiwa, I wonder if that's what real love is, not a reflection of who you were, but a mirror held up to who you're becoming. She had to die to find it, which feels like too high a price. But then I remember that most of us die a little inside every time we choose safety over truth, and I think maybe she got the better deal. The final scene came 6 months later. Morning light filtered through the windows of their shared apartment. Not his penthouse, not Ara's old space, but something they'd chosen together. Tiwa woke to find Junhyun already awake, watching her with that same intensity that still made her breath catch. What? She murmured sleepily. Just memorizing this. His finger traced the curve of her cheekbone. The way you look when you're peaceful, when you're not fighting the world. She smiled. I like fighting the world. I know. It's one of my favorite things about you. Her hair had fully transformed now. Thick curls that she wore natural and free. Her skin had settled into a warm golden brown that somehow held both Tiwa and Ara in its tone. She existed as herself, complete and undivided. Their business was thriving. A boutique hotel group that celebrated cultural fusion and employed people from marginalized communities. It was successful and meaningful and entirely theirs. Junhyun's hand slid along her waist, pulling her closer in the tangle of sheets. She was wearing his white dress shirt, and he was bare except for the sunlight painting gold across his skin. The moment was intimate, sensual, but also simply peaceful. Do you ever regret it? He asked quietly. Giving up your old life? Sometimes I miss it, she admitted. But I don't regret choosing this. Choosing you. Choosing the woman I'm becoming. Good. He kissed her forehead, her cheekbone, the corner of her mouth. Because I choose you every single day. She turned in his arms, straddling his waist, the shirt riding up as she settled against him. His hands came to rest on her thighs, warm and possessive but never demanding. I love you, she said simply. I love you too. His eyes held hers. Every version of you, every identity, every choice that led you here. They kissed as Seoul woke up around them. As their new life continued to unfold, as the impossible became simply their reality. Because sometimes you have to die to learn how to truly live. Sometimes you have to cross oceans, real or metaphysical, to find home. And sometimes the most radical act of love is choosing yourself first and trusting that the right person will choose you right back. Seoul burned for them that morning. And they burned for each other. Equal. Free. Utterly consumed. exactly as it should be.